Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. So in this video, we're going to be showing you an inside look at the art market and how this market is actually manipulated by a couple of key players in the trade, if you will. So I wanted to do this video for a while. I kind of put this video on the back burner because a lot of controversy erupted a little bit in the comment section when I posted a video about Wada Games, heritage auctions, and third-party grading and market manipulation through Pawn Stars and the like. So I said, well, gee, if I do a video on the high-end art market being manipulated, along with the other controversy that's already circling this channel, I think it would be too much to release both these videos at the same or near the same time. So I specifically held this particular video back where I didn't even film it until I was ready to premiere it on this particular channel. So what we're going to be looking at today is the contemporary high-end art market of present day, meaning the year 2020 and beyond, and also how it's completely controlled and manipulated by a handful of individuals that have a lot of power over this market. You know, if you watch a lot of my videos, one of the things that I talk about is I like to invest in things for the long term. So I go after traditional antiques, coins, currency, historical documents, collectible first edition books, and yes, art. However, art is very, very speculative. It's very risky, and it's also one of the most sophisticated markets in the antiques and collectibles trade overall. There's a lot of people that get into the art market that pretty much get burned alive, literally, because they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to navigate the waters, and they don't know who to trust. So I've started to produce videos on this particular content because I do have a lot of knowledge in this realm. I'm not going to state that I'm an expert. Believe it or not, art is obviously more complex than talking about pop culture-based collectibles. Whether we want to sit here and discuss video games, Magic the Gathering, comic books, or vintage toys, when we start talking about the art market and how it works, it's actually a sophisticated system. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to break that down a little bit for you guys and just show you how much manipulation there is in this market. So first of all, we have to define what type of art I am referring to in this realm. I'm referring to contemporary artists, artists that are still alive at present day, that want to get their name out there in the emerging art realm, and they basically have to use a gallery to do that. Now, the reason why a lot of these artists have to use a gallery to get their name out there is because it's a symbiotic relationship. The gallery promotes the artist, and if it's a high-end gallery, which I'm going to name a couple where you can go and look on their websites and see what artists they're promoting at present time, you have to understand there's a vested interest because that gallery is going to spend a considerable amount of money promoting that new artist. So they want to choose somebody whose art is on the up and up. Now, one thing you got to remember is art is in the eye of the beholder. There's a lot of people that look at art and they say, you know, I don't like that painting, or I don't like that piece of art. But if somebody else does, it actually qualifies as art. In fact, in today's complex art world, the more controversial or the more outlandish your pieces are, the better off you are as an artist, because the amount of high-profile collectors that are going to gravitate towards your pieces, the better off for you because prices are going to start to skyrocket on those particular items. It's just the nature of the beast at present time. Everybody wants to put out something that is offensive or outlandish or a little bit crazy to get the interest of high-profile collectors, dealers, and art galleries talking. And a lot of established art galleries look for emerging artists who do things on the cutting edge. You know, if we talk about Banksy, Banksy is a very popular artist right now because his works can be considered controversial at best. Ironically, Banksy always makes fun of the capitalistic system that his art is sold into. He does a lot of crazy antics, like he had the one painting that was shredded directly at auction. That was an antic that was attributed to him, but it also gave his art a lot more value when that antic went off couple of years back. What was it, last year, I think, he did that stunt at auction where Sotheby's was left holding the proverbial bag when that happened. For those of you that are not aware, just Google Banksy and shredding art painting, and you'll see what I'm talking about in this particular video. Well, to get on with this, we got to look at how the contemporary high-end art market is structured. And this is where manipulation rears its ugly head. For those of you out there wondering, this is 10 times worse than what I stated was occurring with Graded Video Games, with Wada Games, with Pawn Stars, and the like. In instances where we're talking about art, we're talking about paintings that typically sell for $10,000 a piece on up. In some instances, we're talking about paintings that sell for 6 figures, 7 figures, very high dollar amounts we're dealing with here, guys. So this is how it works. An emerging artist is out there doing his thing, and let's assume he doesn't want to set up shop in a local small town and just have a art gallery on the main street of town where he's going to sell a couple of works, but at the end of the day, given with his expenses and everything else, he's going to break even and still probably go hungry. So he wants to break out of his shell, and he wants to get noticed. Well, the way an artist gets noticed is he has to contact a lot of the popular main art galleries out there at present time that occupy cities like New York, London, Los Angeles, even Hong Kong. He wants to get worldwide exposure. So he starts putting out his work, and he contacts a lot of these galleries, and they say, hey, I'm an emerging artist. These are samples of my work. Here's my quote-unquote portfolio of work that I've created. I'm hoping somebody will exclusively sign me and take me on as an emerging artist. Now, the art gallery has a vested interest to do that because they can get him to sign an exclusive contract, and they can control the sales and the publicity of that particular artist. So if that artist attracts a lot of high-profile dealers and collectors, guess what? They can only buy his work through that gallery. When an artist signs to a high-end art gallery, 9 chances out of 10, he is not allowed, in most cases per his contract, to sell art on the side. What that means is that gallery that signs him, they have the exclusive rights to pretty much distribute and sell and price his artwork to the public. Whether that's selling to collectors, having an art gallery exhibit or opening where his art is featured, selling to museums, or pushing the work through the auction route, which doesn't happen routinely when an artist is fairly new. More on that in a bit. So you have to understand that given the way the high-end contemporary art market works, there is a symbiotic relationship between the artist, the art gallery, collectors, dealers, and museums. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Pricing the work. Chances are, if it is an emerging artist, not too many people have heard of that emerging artist. So this is where it gets a little tricky for the art gallery. If the art gallery prices that work too low, the artwork and that artist is going to be seen as poor quality or low quality, meaning below average. So let's say an emerging artist comes on the scene, and most other emerging artists, their pieces of work are selling for $3,000 to $5,000 a painting. If the art gallery comes in, assesses the market, and says, we're going to price this at $2,500, that may tick off and tip off other collectors and dealers who may view that work as less than average. And they may say, you know what, if he's only selling for $2,500 and this artist over here is selling for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a painting, I would be better off putting my money over here in this artist because this artist's work is seen as having more value. So what that means, that should automatically set off alarm bells in your head, because what that means is there's already a floor, a price floor, those of you that have studied economics, where they're setting the price of that item at a certain amount where they will not drop that price under any circumstance. Now, if the art gallery prices that piece of work too high, an opposite phenomenon could occur. If the price is too high, a lot of collectors, dealers, and museums who go to look at that emerging artist will say, well, I already know this artist is becoming established over here. His work is selling for $3,000 to $5,000 a painting. You price this new emerging artist at $6,000 to $7,000 a painting. I don't know if I'm comfortable taking a risk where I have to pay $1,000 to $2,000 more per painting to get this new artist when I could go right over here and buy an emerging established artist for less than that amount. So if the art gallery prices it too high, that particular emerging artist can be viewed as the work being overhyped. Now, complicating matters more, you have art critics. There's a lot of art publications, I'm not going to name them all, but if you go into your Barnes & Noble and you look at the news rack and you look along the section where they sell antique publications and the like, usually around the pop culture range, you're going to come across magazines that cater to the art market. A lot of art critics write articles on emerging artists. Even if you get a copy of the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, New York Times, occasionally, if you go through it and you look through the publication on the weekends, they'll sometimes have reviews of galleries opening and also emerging artists, where art critics will give their take on a lot of these emerging artists that are working with these high-end galleries. Now, here's something else a lot of these galleries may not want you to know. What they do is, if you're a very wealthy client, so let's say that your last name is Rockefeller, or Kennedy, or Gates, or Trump, or Bezos, if you want to collect art, and you're a well-known art collector, the gallery has a vested interest to get you to buy that piece of art. So they will invite you privately to come to that gallery, and they will offer you a discount if you choose to buy the works of art being produced by that emerging artist that they're trying to hype. Now, why would they do this? Well, it's quite simple. If somebody with the last name of Kennedy or Rockefeller or Gates buys into this emerging artist, guess what? It adds even more status to that up-and-coming artist. Remember, guys, art has no intrinsic value. Art is not like gold. It's not even like a stock or bond where we can go back and we can look at the balance sheet and look at the fundamentals that make up the speculative or investment value of that particular asset. With art, it's all subjective. It's all speculative. So if I can get you to believe that an up-and-coming artist is worth $10,000 per painting, you're going to be more than willing to pay that $10,000. Now, this is something else that most people don't realize. When it comes to emerging artists, there's a lot of higher-end contemporary modern art galleries out there in the world, whether we're talking about Paris, New York, LA, Philadelphia, every major metropolitan city pretty much has one. They will offer, galleries I mean, will offer discounts to museums to purchase those works of art if they do choose to. Now, this can be very enticing for certain museums because the museum will send critics to these galleries, and if they think that artist is gaining traction, they'll plunk down $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 and take a chance on one of their pieces of art, just because if that artist does then break out, they pretty much came in at the entry level to buy that painting that is now going to be worth $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, $500,000. So it's beneficial between both the gallery and also the museum to form private relationships, just like it's beneficial for collectors and galleries to form these exact similar relationships. Now, here's an interesting tidbit. A lot of people don't know this. If you're a high-end collector and you go to one of these galleries and you purchase a piece of art for an emerging artist, a lot of times the gallery will tell you, you can't consign this piece of work to auction for X number of months or years from now. The reason why the gallery does that is because if one of those pieces of works goes to auction, they then have to send somebody to go and bid up the price of that piece of art, because if you have an emerging artist whose art is routinely selling for $5,000 to $10,000 a painting on the secondary market, and Heritage or Sotheby's or Christie's auctions off a piece of that art and it now sells for $2,000 to $3,000, what that signals is the secondary market value is only at $2,000 to $3,000. Meanwhile, the art gallery is trying to preserve the value of that artist at a much higher level. So the market is not in congruency. So what happens is, if somebody goes to sell one of those works of art from that particular artist at that time, the art gallery, unbeknown to the public, will send somebody to that auction to bid up the price of that piece of work. Now you're going to say to me, Sean, is that legal? It's 100% legal. If the gallery wins that bid and they pay the auction house, they've done nothing wrong. Now, if the gallery goes and bids up that piece of work and the bid ends up at $7,000 and they don't pay the auction house, then the auction house has a right, per most laws, to sue the gallery for non-payment of bidding on an item and not paying for it. So this is a very complex market. I wanted to hold off doing this video because I know a lot of people out there like art and they want to get into the higher end art market. There's a lot of people I talk to that collect comic art, and they always ask me, you know, I have $30,000 in comic art. I would like to sell $10,000 of it and get into contemporary emerging artists or modern art. And I tell them the markets are completely different. The market for contemporary emerging art is always going to be manipulated because the galleries control a lot of these artists. Now, everybody always asks me, Sean, can you at least name me some high-end galleries? So if I want to log on to these websites and just see what's out there, I would like to do so. So I'm going to name you some. First and foremost, one of my favorite galleries is the Pace Gallery. The Pace Gallery is out of New York, London. They have several locations throughout the world. And some of the emerging artists that have come out of that particular gallery have been Donald Judd and Maya Lin. I don't expect you to recognize those names, but they are contemporary artists that have exclusive contracts with the Pace Gallery. Another gallery that we need to talk about is Gagosian, and I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. It's Gagosian. They have locations throughout the world. We're talking Rome, Athens, New York, London, Paris. I mean, anywhere you can imagine. And if you ever heard of Damien Hirst, he's a very well-known contemporary artist. He was being promoted by the Gagosian galleries. So that should tell you something. Last but not least, I want to talk a little bit about David Zwirner. Zwirner is spelled Z-W-I-R-N-E-R. His gallery is located out of New York and London, and if you ever heard of the artist Jeff Koons, I know a lot of you have heard that name, he was promoted by the David Zwirner Gallery. So there is a lot of moving pieces when we talk about the art market, the sophistication of the art market, understanding the art market. It is not a market for the average person out there who has $5,000 or $10,000 to spend that is looking to invest in an alternate asset class. As a matter of fact, I would strongly steer the novice or beginning collector away from the high-end art market in this case. I thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it opened up your mind a little bit. I'm going to upload this video to YouTube immediately because I want to know what the reaction's going to be. Chances are most people that watch my videos for the pop culture content are not going to be into this video, so I probably don't have to worry about too many people coming on this particular video and leaving comments like, well, I can't believe that market's manipulated, or wow, it's worse than great at video games. Most people who are going to comment on this, I think, already know that there's some manipulation going on in these markets, but I don't know. So we'll have to see what the comments I get on this video and how this comment does with the YouTube analytics. Again, I thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you do want to leave a comment or feedback, please let me know. I would love to hear it. Do you want to see more videos on these topics? I know with YouTube, this is a pretty esoteric talking point, so I don't know whether I should produce more videos in the same vein or if people would rather me spend the time talking about pop culture collectibles. Please let me know in the comment section below. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.